Well, hello, universe, and welcome to the Optimist Daily Update. I'm Kristy Jansen,
And I'm Summers McKay.
and we're part of the team behind the Optimist Daily, making solutions the news. We bring you reader-funded solutions news every day in order to change the tenor of news media, social media, and the direction of your day to help make it one focused on solutions.
7 days a week, we publish positive news stories written by award-winning journalists and delivered online to your inbox and through our social channels. And now, also, for the last year or more, we have been sharing these solutions in a commute-worthy, walk-worthy, home office, take control and ownership of your future-worthy podcast. Today is Monday, the 1st of March, 2021. So as I was about to say the date, I'm looking in show notes and Kristy is typing in the correct date because I was so going to say it was like the 29th of February.
That just happened, Summers, right?
Yeah. Isn't it actually March 743rd of,
yeah. So,
yeah.
March last year, March was before the world went completely kaboom, whatever the weird word I'm trying to come up with here. But yeah, it's been not quite a year. I think March 11th or March 13th is the day that we mark it by. Mm-hmm. But coming on an entire year of remote work.
Remote
and
work.
The just everything turning into a whole different path than we had expected.
Yeah, I saw a meme on social media that was like, I am so grateful because I have wanted for nothing during this pandemic. And the simple fact is that where I sit, even though it has been very challenging and our life changed dramatically and my colleagues and everybody had to sort of experience things differently, we are so fortunate. Our family has been safe and we haven't lost anyone. And while we do have family members who have had COVID, nobody has had a really bad case. And I am so grateful for the lessons of this past year. And I am grateful because I'm willing to look it in the eye for what it was and what it is and what it will be, right? It's really about, and actually this kind of sparks into your optimist view from this past weekend, which is really just taking ownership of the reality of the situation. And from a professional standpoint, I had to look you and our founder and funding team and everyone in the eye and just be like, look, I got to own that things are going to look different for me, but I'm going to come up with much better solutions going forward. And I'm so grateful that we are where we are. And I'm grateful for the transparency that we have and the ability to look at our world for real. And honestly, Kristy, your view this past weekend, which for those of you guys who are Optimist Daily emissaries, you received the view in your Sunday email. It's a bonus for our emissaries. But the headline of Kristy's view this weekend was the Optimist view, taking ownership and choosing a better future. So Kristy, what was this view about? I know that's not going to be what we're talking about today, but I want you to just give everybody a yummy snack.
Okay,
on
yummy
your
snack.
Amazing writing.
I was really being inspired by two different books I've been reading pretty much at the same time. One was Elizabeth Kolbert's Under a White Sky, The Nature of the Future. And she's a tremendously talented climate journalist. She writes about the climate. She wrote The Sixth Extinction in 2014. I think that won the Pulitzer Prize. And this is her newest book. And it's about how how we have been messing with our natural environment since humans came down out of the trees, basically. But in the last couple of centuries, we've really started to transform our environments, and we're now in something called the Anthropocene, which is we've made a mark on this planet so profound that when we look back in time, it'll be like the time of the dinosaurs when the asteroid hit. Basically, you can see human activity and how we've changed the biosphere, and it'll show up in the epic. So we're in the Anthropocene epic.
Exactly in
Um,
the
and
story.
yeah, and so even if we decide we want to turn back to like pre-industrial times, we've actually so profoundly changed the way that the world works. We're not in a stable climate any longer, and this you can see from the Greenland ice sheets. So honestly, the cat is out of the bag. We are in a destabilized climate world, and even if we stop emitting fossil fuels tomorrow, or stop emitting carbon and get off fossil fuels tomorrow, we're still going to have to deal with the consequences of that. And I mean, the faster we get off, the better, because we will lower the destabilization, but it's still a bit it's out of equilibrium.
Yeah.
So that was one book that I was reading that book while I was also reading a novel or a set of novels by Octavia Butler, about which was also set in sort of a dystopian future. It was written in the 1990s, set in the 2020s and 2030s. So it's sort of this interesting echo of living through a moment which has been written about, it, imagined from the past, and how eerie the echoes were. So this is sort of putting this together. And I know that sounds really dark, but actually it's sort of saying, hey, whether we like it or not, we basically we broke it, so we own it.
Right.
So we've been messing with this planet so badly. Now, I mean, we can do nothing, and it's just going to mean more suffering for humanity and for many of the species which are not doing so great in this new reality that we've helped to usher in. So we are an ingenious species. We've got billions of minds, and if we all work together and come up with solutions, I think we really can make a difference. And we have to take the lessons of humility from the messed up past. And so if we're humble and we listen to nature and we listen to ourselves, that maybe we can do something a little different, but we have to really come together. So
what I kind of likened it to on a personal level was like recognizing that you can be sad about something. You can acknowledge something for what it is. You can have tragedy or sadness or trauma, but that doesn't mean everything's just over. Right. It doesn't mean that the acknowledgement of sad or the acknowledgement of change or damage erases all possibility for an optimistic future. In fact, like the very acknowledgement of it is what creates the runway for an optimistic future. It's what gives us the tools for an optimistic future.
And for change. I mean, the first thing you have to do is diagnose that you've got an issue going on. You've got a problem.
Can't manage what you can't measure.
Exactly. That's true. And basically, I mean, we talk a lot about bringing intention into our lives, right? And how that makes you feel. It grounds you in what you can do. And if you walk forward with intention, you usually have a better outcome, as opposed to if you're just reacting all the time. Right. And in the same kind of way, we have to walk forward into the future of our planet with intention and come together and do less harm, as George Saunders says.
Exactly. And, we've got amazing headlines on the Optimist Daily today that the stories that Kristy and I both have chosen fall into that category. I'll kick it off with mine. And
please, yes.
Mine is really a story about acknowledging disparity and making tactical efforts to change it. And disparity that has really substantial impacts. I've talked about stories about workshops, I think, in South America, which were teaching people or women with disabilities, technology education, this access to technology and this understanding of technology and the use of communication is so imperative. And we know after this last year that the absence of digital connection is really an unbelievable, handicap for communities and for people who do not have access to it. So my headline reads, the FCC approves internet subsidies to bridge digital divide during the pandemic. Now, pandemic obviously has highlighted this and the importance of digital equity. And it's also made it very clear that the digital divide still exists. Roughly, I think that there is an estimate that 21 million Americans do not have high-speed internet available in their residences. And this comes from a lot of reasons. This comes from not being able to pay for it. This comes from the telecom companies not choosing to invest in developing it for them. And this is not only a challenge for these individuals, but it's a challenge for our society as, in aggregate. So this particular program, the FCC has approved the Emergency Broadband Benefit Program to provide internet subsidies to families in need during the pandemic. It's a $3.2 billion program eligible to households with like a $50 a month credit toward their broadband services. And households may also receive $100 toward a tablet or computer. And households in Native American lands can receive an increased credit of up to $75 per month. So what this does is it not only helps the individual families, but it incentivizes the companies who deliver broadband internet to serve these communities and to serve them in an efficient manner. So it's kind of a rising tides business opportunity that innovative companies who are finding other ways to deliver broadband internet to all of these communities can really benefit. And so what a subsidy does like this, it not only helps pay the bills, but it helps drive the solution.
Right.
And
it helps create a market, right, Summers?
Exactly. It creates a market.
It helps create the market so the market can actually come in and help to invest in this, exactly, in the broadband.
It justifies the investment for these companies. And what it will do is prevent these communities from having a further divide of education, access, and, even if you think about it, like even things like healthy food during the pandemic, it was very difficult to get access to food for a while if you didn't have internet to order things. So, and, in the absence of services as from internet to healthy local foods, all of this, we just have to work on it all together. So that one was my favorite story of the day. And I'm kind of an internet junkie.
We'll take it from that. And I think we have an interview coming up later this week that we did with Michael Flood of Khajiit, who's the vice president of the educational solutions for that company. And they're focused exactly on this, on how to bring connectivity, especially for educational solutions, but for other things as well, into areas that have been underserved in the past. And I think that this kind of equality is super important. And I love this story. I'm glad you highlighted it. And similarly, by creating this market, it's showing that investing in broadband for places that maybe if you think of broadband as a commodity wouldn't pay, they haven't, but really when you think of it more as a utility almost, it makes sense for the government to get involved and to subsidize that kind of investment. What the article I wanted to talk about, and this is the headline reads, "A net zero America would boost GDP by $1 trillion." And this is for all of us who are thinking, oh no, we're going to have to give up so much of our standard of living if we're going to address things like getting off of fossil fuels and getting into a net zero emissions world, which means electrifying our transportation, finding a shorter supply lines for our food, electrifying our or putting renewables more into our energy system, all the things we need to do to get off of sort of becoming the massive carbon emitters that we have become and that we are. Yeah. But all of that is going to take a lot of investment. And it feels like the argument is, oh, it's too expensive. It's too expensive. What this new report is finding is actually that not only is it not expensive, that kind of investment will actually revolutionize our gross domestic product. And that's just one kind of measure. It doesn't talk about the social suffering, which will be avoided, and the health suffering, which will be avoided by lowering asthma and other health risks of a sort of a polluted carbon world that we've been in. But reaching net zero emissions is critical for mitigating further damage, but it also turns out that it's likely to increase economic opportunities. And that's what this
exactly
this study is found. It's from the nonprofit Energy Innovation, and it is calculated that reaching net zero emissions in the U.S. would add nearly $1 trillion to the gross domestic product. The report used decarbonization studies and economic modeling to come to this financial conclusion. And a major part of the driving factor is the potential growth in green energy sector jobs, and the drop in renewable energy technology has been so significant over the past decade. I mean, if a decade ago, solar panels were 90% more expensive than they are today. Today, they've dropped 90%. Solar panels. Wind turbines have dropped 70%. Batteries used in electric vehicles are 80% cheaper today than they were in 2013. Yeah. And the direction is continuing as these industries scale up. And there's more jobs being created every year in solar and wind than there are in some of the older fossil fuel industries, even though there's still millions of people who are working in coal and oil and natural gas. Really, the direction is towards these greener renewable energy technologies. And there's so much possibility and opportunity there that the future is bright.
Yeah.
So it's not just about
exactly.
So that's why I wanted to talk about this story. Read the whole article. But energy, and if you take public health into account, improved air quality from those reduced emissions will avoid an estimated $2 million asthma attacks each year by 2050, eliminating 6.5 million lost workdays and avoiding 65,000 premature deaths. Now, it's just talking about, like, I've been listening to stories set in Texas with burst pipes and folks who've lost their homes or are having trouble. And it's the lower income parts of Dallas this one article or this one podcast was focused on. But 2 out of the 3 women they spotlit, their kids have asthma. And what you see is that people who live in these more poverty-stricken areas or places which is where they put the power plants, by the way. That's where they put natural gas power plants. That's where they put coal power plants. They have like 3 times more likely to have asthma for kids to grow up in those areas, and that decreases their ability to function, compared to people who grew up in cleaner air kinds of places. Anyway, it's a social equity consideration and all of that wasted human potential.
Well, and I think what both Kristy's story and my story illuminate is the idea that you can create a very economically viable solution simply by investing in a market that can then expand. And so as we've seen the rapid decline in costs for renewable energy over the past decades, likewise, we can continue to see a rapid decline in the costs of non-renewable technology, whether that be the health costs or the infrastructure costs. The future is bright, and these kinds of investments on, the policymakers level as well as investors level and municipal level really advance a brighter tomorrow. Guys, we've got to roll, Kristy. It's time for our all hands meeting, and then you're going to take a little time off this week. But real quick, guys, let me pick 3 other headlines on the Optimist Daily. There is a rare yellow penguin that mystifies biologists. I find it a little creepy. I love this one. Madagascar will host the world's first 3D printed
I know.
school.
I wanted you to do that one. I love that.
And then, okay, see, the only other one, and this is a shout out to the current challenge that I am undergoing, which is replacing all of the flooring in the home that we have purchased. Hemp is the main ingredient in this truly sustainable alternative to wood, which I wonder how it would handle floods. Anyway, that and much more is available today on the Optimist Daily. Thank you all for listening. We promise to continue to share positive, solution-based stories with ideas on how you can participate in this changing world and ensure it is changed for the good. We promise to cover the current events with accuracy, legitimate sources, and offer you the information needed most to chart new paths for all of us. And I'm not even going to ask anyone to become an emissary today. I'm going to ask you to subscribe for free or send to a friend, because guess what, Kristy? We got 40 new emissaries over the weekend. So I'm feeling good. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.